Welcome to the IO Nebo podcast. I'm your number one host, Bella.
Hi guys, listen to the Iron Nibble Tech Podcast.
Welcome to the IO Nebo podcast. I'm your number one host, Melash. And today we talk about a great topic, programming. And I have on my guest list the best people I could ever have when we talk about programming. Well, I have Kubo with two strings. Newhope Bezrah. You can call him and say he's a musician too. And if you want to listen to his music, he will tell you more about it when we go into discussions. And I have, when somebody is great, you don't really need to, but let me tell you his name says it all. Okay, it's called Degreat Yartey. He's greater than Bill Gates. I can tell you for fact because he builds servers. He's a product developer. He's a 3D designer. You name it. He has a lot of facets of. Let me say his assets are many when it comes to skills. The same with Newhope too. Welcome to the show. It's the Iron Able Podcast. Hello, my guest.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me on
Hello.
the show.
Hey, it's nice to have you guys. I mean, I like the smiles on your face. Trust me. It means today is going to be fun. It's going to be really, really fun. I know my listeners or the Iron Able listeners are really, really always happy when they listen to us. And the way you are smiling is it's very organic. It's going to get to them. Especially for those watching on YouTube. Anyway, I must say we are on YouTube, we are on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, we are on Amazon Music, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. You can follow us, like us, subscribe, listen. So now let's proceed into the real topic now, shall we? Programming. Let's see, what is the idea of programming anyway? Because before we go into talking about programming, I mostly ask myself, I'm using Zoom right now and I'm asking myself, how is Zoom even possible? And back then when I was playing video games and I see players right now, I'm saying, when are they going to sweat? Now, a few years later, I see players sweating. And that's a lot of programming going in there, I'm sure. So what is programming basically? For the layman, for the kids who are enthusiasts, for the people who want to be programmers, what is programming? Tell me more. We can start with the great, of course.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's a great question. In my opinion, I like to see programming as instructions, okay, that you give someone or something. So for example, you tell a kid to go and buy stuff from the market, right? That is a program. Let's call that a program. Now, how does a kid get to the market and buy the stuff? That is programming. That is putting together some instructions to get to the market and then get the stuff. So what are the things involved? You have to walk, right? The child has to know that he has to walk, or he can crawl, or he can pick a bus, right? What you realize is that there are different methods to get to the place. Now, when you get to the place, what do? You have to find a shop, right? Or you have to ask someone else to get the stuff for you. So what you realize that at every stage, there are different ways to achieve what they call it, the task, right? You can, using this analogy, that is how programming is like. When programming, we tell the computer that, hey, when you get to this level, do this. After you've done that, probably use this result to do the next step and so forth. So that's how programming works.
Interesting. It's actually very simple to understand. That means the program is you want to get to the market and buy some food stuff. However,
Yes.
whatever instructions you have to follow, being walking, crawling, sitting in the bus, is the programming, of course.
Yeah.
Great. So then, Newhope, how does all of this come together? Or how does programming work? I mean, I believe you are the Kubo with two strings, so you can defeat any, you know how it goes.
The grade has already said it all, so I'll just summarize it. As he has explained, that's how it works. And but normally with regards to this, the programming is done with computers, or
Okay.
the instructions are given to computers. Okay, so when these instructions are given to them, they are in the form of a readable text that humans can read. But at
Okay.
the same time, on the other, to the computer, it is a machine code. It's a machine, zeros and ones. Then we have an intermediary. That is, we call it a compiler. That helps to interpret to the computer what the text that you have entered into it is trying to tell it. So writing the codes in the compiler, then the compiler then interprets it to the computer in a machine code, that this and this and this is what the programmer is asking you to do.
So in
I think that
effect,
should sum it up.
so in effect, you're saying the computer needs somebody to interpret,
All
right? Meaning that there is a programming language, of course, something that a computer understands.
Yes.
Exactly. Right. So then,
yes,
of course, I, being a computer enthusiast, I've heard a few things like programming languages. I don't know if it is English or French or, I hope it's not English and French mixed together, because he mentioned zeros and ones, and I'm wondering what they are. And I had machine codes. Now, oh yeah, of course, you said machine codes. All I know is code is zeros and ones. Of course, you've mentioned it. So now the question is, what are the programming languages?
Yeah.
Because if I remember, Jesus, God twisted languages for people and then they split around the world. That's what people say. So what are the programming languages, my friend? Tell me more. The kids are listening too, and I'm sure they want to know.
Yeah. So just like the example I gave earlier, depending on where the child is coming from, if it's from like a Ga home, they would have to speak Ga, right?
Definitely.
However, they can teach their child different languages. Okay. But if you're going to go like deeper into how the brain works, we can say that the brain doesn't actually work with those languages, right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the same thing for programming. When we are programming, we program in a way that we understand as humans. However, the computer is going to process it into something else. Some of the languages that you can use to speak to the computer, we have Python, we have JavaScript, we have Java. Java and JavaScript aren't actually the same thing. They are two separate stuff, and they have different use cases. Now, when you hear this, like the name of these languages, they aren't like gibberish or something when you are coding. They are actually real English words. Well, depending on which country that language was developed at and what the engineers decided to use as their natural language, okay? In my experience, I've not actually met any language in a different language like French or something. Most of them have been in English. However, they have different syntax and so forth. That makes them different programming languages.
Yeah. I heard you say Python. Are you not? Are we talking about the snake Python, or it's also a language?
So Python is a language. However, the name, the history of the name is a bit funny. The creator like dubbed it from a series he was watching. So
Oh, okay. So Newhope. Yeah.
I think he lacked inspiration for naming. So
he saw a Python and said, this one, there has to be Python.
Yes.
Wunderbar. I have a name. Eureka, I found a name. We call it Python. Okay. Newhope. Yeah. When Degreat was talking, he mentioned things like syntax. For me, as a I understand syntax in a setting. I understand a bit, but for everybody listening who are enthusiastic to get into program, what is syntax? What is syntax all about?
Okay. Syntax, I would say, is just basically the arrangement of phrases in the programming language. They are well-formed sentences that mean something to that particular language. So, for example, there are some terminologies when you bring them in, it means how do I say it? It outlines a command in the computer, so you don't need to try explaining or writing a lot about what you want the computer to do. You just bring a terminology, and the computer understands what exactly you are trying to talk about.
Oh, okay. So, Degreat, on about syntax, you have further things to say?
Yeah.
Because then I have, if you don't, I have some experience about doing that, and I'll tell you when we are done.
So when we say syntax, so syntax, let me give you an example with a natural language, okay? I bought food yesterday. This is, I'm telling you, I bought food yesterday. However, I can switch it up and say, yesterday I bought food. Okay.
Yeah.
I still understand that, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Now, in terms of programming, it's not like actually the same. Okay. You can't like make stuff and expect it to work. You know that a command means let's say a command like, let's say, print. Okay. You have to pass it stuff to print. Okay. When coding, you actually have to like follow the syntax of having to print something. You cannot put in what you want to print somewhere else and then type print under and expect it to work. Okay. So that is like follow the pattern of how to like achieve like a certain kind of task in the language. And these kind of stuff are actually documented. It's not like I was born or Newhope was born with this kind of knowledge. All these kind of like syntax, semantics and so forth are all documented on like the official sites of the languages and so forth. And you can like learn from there how those things are done. Those things are like actually learned, just like we learn any new language. Okay.
Interesting. Anyway, talking about syntax, in effect, can you say syntax is a rule?
Yes.
A
So
rule.
just
a
like we
rule.
have, yes, grammar.
Oh yeah, yes. It's a rule.
Learning grammar at school.
Exactly. I was actually referring to a grammar rules that you can't say I was going. I was gone. You have to say I was going.
Yes.
You get me?
Yes.
Oh, so okay. So we spoke about syntax. I was going to tell you a bit of experience when I was trying to learn JavaScript. Okay, and oh, don't worry, I don't know how to code JavaScript. It was me being an enthusiast and trying to see if I can learn programming. Okay, so I remember what's the JavaScript? What do you hello world? How do you even print it? This is a very short one.
Console.log.
Okay, so I just had to learn that one. I took me 8 hours to just learn to do hello world.
Congratulations.
So,
you can also make it alert.
You see, these are all programming languages,
Yeah.
and it's easy to learn. I mean, it's easy to learn. It's like learning English. You go into school, we learned I, walk, nouns, pronouns. Exactly. I think programming languages work that way too, right? Now, to switch up the experience,
Yes, sure.
let's talk about the experience. I mean, definitely, you guys are experts in your own fields. With one of the persons being Degreat being a 3D designer and everything with different assets. Charlie, that guy has like, I mean, Degreat has like 20 guns. He can pull anyone anytime. Some are bazookas, missiles, and everything. And Newhope has, it's like more like, I'll mention his name. That short president, King Don. He always puts his bombs there. Says, "Yes, I have bombs. Okay, I can blow you up." Yeah, I like the smile. You see, these are great people. Now let's highlight your experiences. Yeah. I want to start with Newhope. Tell me more about your field, your experiences in programming. Tell me more about your skill.
Okay. Basically, I use PHP programming language, and PHP is currently the #1 programming language for web development. And we know about Yahoo being powered by PHP, Facebook being powered by PHP, and most of the open source applications we use for our websites on a daily basis, such as WordPress, Joomla, Drupal, they are all powered by PHP. And so from my experience, I would say it's a great programming language, but it can't do everything. So there will be the need for you to add some other programming language. For example, I had to add JavaScript for the user end to be able to interact with the back end, which is powered by PHP. But when I started programming, I didn't even know that I was doing programming. I began as a web designer. So at a point, I was then playing with JavaScript, and then I realized it was getting interesting. Because at first, whenever they mention programming, yeah, whenever they mention programming, I'm like, that's for IT guys. Yeah, because I studied electrical and electronic engineering, and the programming that I did in school was, I don't know, I can't remember. It was something, it has something to do with C++, but I don't even know how I managed to pass. At that time, I had no knowledge, nothing about programming. So I started with JavaScript, and then along the line, I decided to add PHP because I realized that most websites that I was visiting were doing amazing stuff, and I got to understand that they were powered by PHP. So I invested some time to start PHP. And as I speak with you right now, I am so happy that my skills have improved over the years. And normally I just, browse the web and then look at the daily issues that people face. And then I see whether there will be the need for a solution that they would be interested in. Sometimes there may be a problem, but maybe the solution that you may bring might not really do well in the market. So I will do a survey and then see if I create a software, they will be interested. And so far as we speak, I've been able to launch 2 software products in the market. You can find them on CodeStar. They are on my profile on CodeStar, and they are doing quite well. The first one I came out with was, it has something to do with affiliate marketing. For years, I've actually been looking for a much smoother way to start affiliate marketing, but I haven't been able to come across any suitable solution. So after I got some skills in the PHP, I decided to sit down and then think about how to solve my problem. And along the line, I realized that a lot of people will also need the same thing. So I decided to make it as a product. So I launched it, and by the grace of God, it was very, how do I say it? It took off well. And then recently this year, I launched another one that was to help sound engineers in marketing their products. And I call that one HitCube. So yeah, it's also available on CodeStar from Netherlands. So I would say that day by day, I'm learning more and I'm improving, and it's quite interesting. The only thing though is it's time involving, and you need to be committed and focused. That's all I would say. But when you get into it, it's something interesting. It's amazing how you talk to computers, and then they produce what you want to you. It's quite amazing. Yes. So that's my experience.
I have one last question. What is the greatest thing you've done with your programming? What is the greatest thing you've done with your programming? What is the greatest thing you've done with your programming?
The greatest thing, I would say, now I'm able to solve problems for people around the world. Yes.
Interesting.
Like most of the times when people buy my software products, they get back to me and then they are like, wow, it's the greatest software I've seen so far. Then they bring suggestions as to how best I can make it. How do I say it? How can I help improve upon its development so that they can enjoy the usage? They bring ideas. So I keep like it makes me. I feel so proud about it, so to say. Yes, I feel so proud about it. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. I mean, it's interesting to hear what you had to say, and your greatest, achievement is interesting to me. The great.
Yes. Also.
Same question to you, and Ali. Add what's real life problem you solve with your program, and then add a bit of what's the name again?
Okay.
What you've been able to do with your programming language, and the greatest thing you've ever done with your programming.
Yes. So when I was a kid, right? My first experience was seeing my uncle like playing a game on his computer, and like since then it's like ignited like the love for computers in me. And like since that time, I've been drawing computers on like sheets and like trying to imagine them work, okay? Like this kind of stuff. And when I was in JHS, my mom sent me to this ICT classes, okay? So whenever I close from school, I go for the ICT classes, and that is where I learned how to that was like my first actual usage of a computer, like how to turn it on, how to click on start, and so forth. And at that time, I learned how to use Word, how to use Notepad, and I got interested in how to create viruses, like having to having to create like
you should see my eyes.
a batch script that like has an icon as a normal program on your PC, and when you double click on it, it probably erases your files, or it can shut your PC down, or it can open Notepad like forever. Okay, so when I found out, I was like I want to do that. I wanted to like become a hacker. Okay, so I started reading
my dream.
Hacking, how do I say, blog posts and articles and so forth. And I happened to stumble on an article that explains how to be like a proper hacker. Okay, and
white hacker.
No, not actually a white hacker, but like a very good hacker. And it's like in some way it stated that you had to learn programming in order to write your own tools. Okay. Then, so that was when I realized what I was doing with the batch script was programming. Okay. I didn't know it was even programming. In my mind, I was just putting together stuff.
Around.
And since when I discovered that, I was like, man, like I'm just going to learn this programming. I'm going to hack the banks and so forth. So while learning, so after that time, I didn't have a personal computer myself. I didn't have a personal computer myself, and I was using my mom's phone. Okay, so I was learning like, actually the language that was suggested was like C++. So I was learning the C++ on her phone. I was actually reading, okay, and then I ran the programs in my mind. Kept running the programs in my mind until like, so I was just reading like C++. Like every day I read, I take a notebook, I write a program, like run it myself. So I think that kind of experience like built my mind properly to like understand programming. So when I was about to complete school, I took my school fees and didn't pay it, and I bought an Android. And so there's this ID on Android. I think I've forgotten the name. I used it to write a music player. Okay. I think that was my first experience with France, and I had to send him the code and he saw it. So I started programming on my Android, learning like on my Android and so forth, like for a long while. So my experience, so I think my foundation has been built on like those like little times, those like small times where I had to run the programs in my mind and so forth. So it's like in my mind, like how do I say, mentally, like I'm very fit mentally in terms of programming. Okay.
I have one thing to say before you tell me the greatest thing you've done with your programming. You actually have zeros and ones in your head. They are like switches. Did you hear the part he says, I'm actually like running the program in my head? Then he has a compiler in his head. Then he said he's telling him 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1. Actually, I had the same dream you had. His brain is debugger. Somebody just told me that one. Great. So, you know what? I mean, this conversation has been interesting. But first, before I leave you, be great. Tell me, what's the greatest thing you've done with your programming? The greatest thing, the greatest one thing.
There are a lot of great things I think I have done. And
just pick one.
Yes.
Just one.
Yes. Picking one is just being unfair to the rest, but
I have a gun pointed to your head. Pick one.
Yes, so the greatest thing I have done is Aditon. So years ago, I developed Aditon, which was a mobile app to help small and medium enterprises create like websites using their own phone. And then they can like display their products and the prices. They can blog like with just their phone. So they didn't need a PC. They need a PC to run their websites and stuff. So this was to tackle a problem I was facing then, like having to find a shop that sells like a variety of products and that is closer to me. And also to solve the problems of businesses that have to like have like a cheap way, like it's a free service. It was a free service, a cheap way of like putting their business
themselves
online. Yes, putting their businesses online. So yeah, but it failed. So
who said it failed? You are saying it failed.
Yes, I'm saying it failed. I think I didn't have like the execution properly. Like I didn't think of the execution properly, but the idea was just great, but execution.
Do you know what is interesting about the great? His greatest thing is something that failed.
Yes.
And that shows somebody who is really determined. I like that.
Serious.
Yeah.
This isn't to say like anything else I've done after that was like I did like they weren't great. I'm always someone who does like things that is more challenging than the previous stuff. Okay, so I've done like more challenging stuff, but at the time, like looking at the problem at the time was supposed to like solve and stuff. Like I put at the time as like the best. For some days, I keep thinking about like, why don't I like pick it back up? I keep discussing like it with friends and so forth. So I don't know.
For my enabled listeners, for the great, for Newhope, for France, for all the nibs, listen to this. I'm telling you this. Aditon will become one of the greatest things you ever create. You can mark it here. I said it. When he actually
Amen.
Just bring me $1 million. That's what you do. That's all. I said it. Easy as that. I'm the pastor that said it. Programming pastor that said it. Okay, so what?
Amen.
You know what?
Amen.
One last word. One last question, general question. What will be your quick guide for a novice programmer? A quick guide, a 3-step, 3 things. 1, 2, 3. Quick guide. What should he do? He or she?
So first thing is
it's 3 things.
Patient.
1, 2,
yes.
3.
Be patient. Okay. Patience doesn't mean slow. Okay. Patience means taking the right like steps. Don't skip stages. So it means you can be fast to learn stuff, but be patient. Okay. Like know that you have to know this. You have to know A before you have to know 1 before going to 2, before going to 3. Don't think because you are starting at 100 is far away from you. One day you'll get there. Okay. And even when you get to 100, you realize that it's not even enough. Okay. So having to rush to 100, you realize that there was there's no like gratification. Okay, so first thing, like patience. Second thing, be ready to learn. Okay, and the third thing is like be ready to like be open to like a lot of options. Because in my experience, I have tried a lot of things, like things that people say it's worse, it's bad. Like, yes, I tried them. It's so that I know like what are the weakness, okay? Because in my opinion, I see that some technologies help you finish a project quickly, okay? But however, in the long run, it's not worth it, okay? And so forth. So yeah, be open to like options and learn them and know them.
New.
Also trains the way you think.
Boss.
Okay. Three words. Three things. One, two, three. Shoot.
Okay, I'll I'll start with this. Um, it doesn't matter your age or who you are. If you are interested in programming and you want to be a programmer, you can do it without any problem. I, for instance, I didn't like computers until 2012. Had all my focus on electronics, and because I had no idea about, I at that time I couldn't even, I don't even know how to start a computer, let alone shut it down. So when I went to SS, I don't even go to the I don't even know the way to the computer lab until I went to tertiary. Yes. When I went to tertiary,
Okay,
then I
for the
realized
people
that
listening, my hands are on my head, basically.
yes. So until I went to tertiary, I realized, okay, whenever I want to learn something, I go to the library. But then I realized that it was faster to get the information you needed, and with a lot of how do I say it, tutorials and videos on the internet, you can do much more than going to the library with just books. So I developed interest, and with time, today I'm a programmer. I didn't learn IT. It doesn't matter whether you have a degree in IT or you've done any computer course. If you have the interest, no matter who you are, even Google is now employing people who have no degree in IT. They taught themselves how to code, and they are doing marvelously great in the industry. So you can be anybody at all, so long as you have interest in programming, you are good to go. It doesn't matter your age. It doesn't matter whether you are a lady or a guy. You can do it. It all depends on your own interest and determination. And secondly, this is mostly to Ghanaian programmers. I would say our part of the world doesn't really help us much. It's quite challenging when you're a programmer from Ghana. And me, for instance, I have to compete with programmers from US, UK, India, and it's not easy. It's by the grace of God, honestly. And as I speak with you right now, most of my customers are not even from Africa. They are from US, Brazil, UK. Those are the people who buy my products. And
Send
these
me
are
some
the
dollars.
same, yes. And these are the places where we have great programmers coming from. So you would see that you have to compete with them. You could have a product that is marvelously great, doing the same thing as somebody coming from a product that belongs to somebody coming from, let's say, US. They would buy the person who is coming from US's product, leaving yours behind. It's like that. Yes.
It's true. I
Sometimes
agree.
you would even be having more features than that of the person coming from there. But because it's coming from a well-known, let me say, a country that is known to be good in those, yes, they would prefer buying theirs. So it's it's a challenge. So sometimes when, as a beginner, if you don't take time, you get into these things, you might just get discouraged and want to leave out. But I tell you, learn more, be open, try to don't feel proud. No matter how much you know, you don't know everything. So humble yourself, try to learn more every day. If you want to take on programming and be successful in it, learn from people who are already in the industry. We have GitHub there, we have Stack Overflow there. You can visit these platforms to learn more about programming whenever you get stuck at a point. And then the third thing to add to it, this might be funny in a way. If you're a guy, programmers hardly have girlfriends. So
their girlfriends are the computers. Simple.
Definitely. So you need to look at this side as well. If you happen, it's not like you may not have a girlfriend or get married, but it can actually affect your relationship, because programming requires a lot of attention. Your computers will require that much attention and commitment, and women also do the same. So they require commitment and attention. So you are having on one head if you don't take care. I don't know, but it's one thing to consider if you want to enter into programming. So that's the little I can share with you. I only hope it helps someone out there.
I thought I had one last question, but I'm going to ask one last question, and your answer should be a yes or no. Simple.
Okay.
Due to the rapid rate of emerging technologies, should everyone learn some amount of programming language, or some amount of programming? Okay, Degreat. One word, yes or no? Okay, Newhope, yes or no?
Okay. Yes.
Degreat, yes or
no? Sorry, but I want to use a word. We should see programming as like a framework for thinking, okay? You don't necessarily need to learn programming, okay? But you should actually learn like how to think, okay? How to get something from like A to B, how to start a business from A to B, like
from the computer.
In a way, that is like programming, okay? Yes.
So my question was, should you learn some amount of programming? Yes or no?
Yes. Yes.
That's not a convincing yes. But anyway, if you've actually used Word, Excel, all of those things, you've done some level of programming. The minute you say 24 plus 2, so A equals to B is some level of programming.
Yes.
So for all those Excel users and accountants, kudos, you're already programming. So you need to learn some level of programming. Yeah, it's been great having you on the show today, Degreat and Newhope. I would say thank you for coming along. And I need to remind our listeners that there's a giveaway opportunity at ioenables.com. Oh, and you can find a link on the description. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Now, we're also on Amazon Music, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. It's been a good day with you guys, and I've been your number one host, Belash.